The 663rd edition of the Four Corners podcast starts right now.
This is the Four Corners podcast.
Elton ready on his second attempt. That one is no good. They battle for it. Loose ball. Recovered Marvin. He scores. 17 seconds left. And he was fouled. Here we go. Lawson with a runner. No. The rebound. Hansbrough at the gun. Got it.
They were 4 for 24.
Hansbrough on a switch on Paulus. A deep three. And Green rips down the rebound in traffic. 4-on-1.
What a great job. What a terrific job in transition. I mean, you couldn't plan that any better as a coach.
Tipped away by Johnson. It's loose. Page. Johnson.
Oh, they're dancing in the aisles. They're high-fiving. They're celebrating. They're going bananas on Franklin Street.
Pass to Britt, 15 seconds to play. Up high to Page, gets a screen from Meeks. Page driving in on the left, high off the glass for two. Louisville with 7 seconds. Jones has it, goes left corner, Black's here for three. Back iron, 1 second to play, stick up, no! Carolina wins it! The Tar Heels win it! 72-71. 6 seconds to go. Pinson comes front court. Pinson to May for the win. Got it! Luke May! He got it! 0.3 of a second! Luke May gives Carolina the 75-73 lead. Are you kidding me?
Inside 30 overall. Love, top of the key. Oh! Big time delivery.
Here are your hosts, Josh Marlowe and Anthony Pagnotta.
Hello and welcome into another edition of the Four Corners podcast. We are powered by Carolina Electrical Services, and today we got a special guest for you guys. I wanted to go find someone to talk about the Duke-Carolina rivalry in a way that I want it to be known that this is a Carolina podcast and we don't like those guys 8 miles down the road. And I couldn't think of anyone better than Andy Bagwell, a man that has written 2 books about why Duke sucks and why Duke still sucks. He appeared in the I Hate Christian Laettner documentary where he was very open about his hatred for the former Duke star. And so we're going to spend some time over the next 30 minutes or so talking about the greatest rivalry in sports and really just, well, crapping on that darker shade of blue that will be in the Dean Dome tomorrow night as the greatest rivalry in sports is ready to write another chapter. Andy, I'm pretty excited about this. Welcome to the show. Hope you're having a good day so far, my man.
I'm really excited too, Josh. I've been looking forward to this conversation. I really appreciate you having me on. And anytime I get to talk about those boys in dark blue, I'm game. So yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's been, I think, an interesting, build up to the first game so far. You know, Carolina had the game on Monday against Syracuse, where they definitely slept walk in the second half. The same thing happened with Duke, where granted, they had to play Boston College. I mean, what a bio opponent before having to come to Chapel Hill. But, a kind of a slow build, but we got College Game Day in town, a 2-hour show. It is Super Bowl weekend, but we got a top 15 matchup between these two teams, a chance for Carolina to really get in the ACC regular season race. I think with a big performance, Caleb Wilson can start to get some of the recognition nationally that he still isn't getting despite averaging 20-9. So I say all that to say that it's going to feel like Duke Carolina when this ball tips off tomorrow. And as we get closer and closer to it, you can feel the regular nerves settling in for one of these games.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I was nervous the minute that that game ended on Monday. And I've luckily been try to keep myself busy this week so the butterflies stay down, but I mean, it's here. It's all you see. You turn on the television, you're flipping on social media. My texts are starting to blow up, Josh. So that's when I know it's getting closer. I'm hearing from all sorts of people about this. But I think you're right. You hit the nail on the head on a lot of this. One thing you said that I think is really exciting is Caleb Wilson and his ability. I mean, he knows the stage, right? He knows this is his stage. And so I can't wait to watch to see what that kid does the first time he sees Duke.
Yeah, look, we know he's only here for a year, and he knows he's only here for a year, and he knows what performing well in this rivalry does for a legacy. Outside of winning a national championship, you perform well on this stage, you'll be forever remembered fondly on the Carolina campus. I want to talk about the first book you wrote, and then the sequel that you were able to write off of it, because on the preface it might be hard to maybe write a book about why you hate a university, why you hate an institution like Duke that in some other worlds they're highly thought of, they're highly respected. They do a bunch of good stuff with their hospital and stuff like that. But you were able to write a one best-selling book and able to write a sequel to it. I guess what gave you the first motivation, the first thought to put your hatred into words?
Yeah, I feel like it had to be done at some point, though, right? I mean, it's been a thing for a while, but no, it's a kind of a crazy story. So my co-author and I, Reed Tucker, we actually started up a podcast before everybody was doing a podcast. We had a podcast from 2010 to 2015. And we used to end every episode with this week's reason why Duke sucks. And so about a year or two in, we had built up enough of these reasons. We started, compiling a good little list. It's not hard to come up with a list, Josh. I mean, they're constantly giving us new material, right? So it was actually Reed's idea. Reed, who's a writer by trade, he worked at the New York Post at the time. He said, we should do a book about all these reasons why Duke suck. And I'm like, well, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Why would we do that? So, but he was right. So we started working on it. We put together a little proposal, and he had a couple of contacts in the publishing industry. We sent it out, and we didn't really get a lot of response at first, but we got really, really lucky. So our proposal was sitting on this person's desk in New York for a publishing company. And at that exact time, if you think way back to, this was 2011, before the Christian Laettner 30 for 30, there was a 30 for 30 about the Fab Five, right? There was an ESPN film about the Fab Five in Michigan and then playing Duke. And part of that film was Jalen, I think it was Jalen Rose, said something about, call the players Uncle Toms, or some controversy that popped up out of this movie, and it became a national story. And it just so happens like a national story. And here this guy, our book proposal was sitting on this guy's desk. He's, oh, wait a minute, this is more than just some college basketball thing. This is a national story. So that's actually how we ended up getting the first book deal. And then to my surprise, I thought, well, we'll sell this to 500 or 600, every friend that we've ever met in our life. And it absolutely blew up the first week it came out. And it really took off.
And then, you have a sequel. And again, because of the way Duke runs its program, it made it very easy to write, because you have the Zion era, you have the Coach K retirement tour, Grayson Allen. Did you find maybe writing the sequel a lot easier to write than maybe the first one that y'all and your co-author put together?
And strangely, I think it was. And it was one of these things that the book had been out for a while, and all these other things were happening. Grayson Allen was coming on, and we kept saying to ourselves, we got to write another book. We got to write a sequel, or we got to write an addendum or something. And people were telling us that. And when the whole Coach K retirement tour, and when Carolina beats, you had the clip on your pre-roll here, when Carolina beats Coach K in the Final Four, Reed and I were like, dude, this is the basketball gods telling us it's time to write the sequel. So, so really at that point, we just kind of gathered up all the stuff that had happened since the last book came out, just picked it up from there. And it snapped out a little faster than the first one did.
Before we get to your thoughts on Christian Laettner, because I'm really excited to hear those, because I'm only 29, but he was already gone before I was even born. So I need a different perspective from that. What between the first book and the second book, if you had to pick your two favorite anti-Duke things, your favorite anti-Duke members that you got to put down pen to paper, I think the second one's pretty easy because of what we did to them in the Final Four, but I'm not going to speak for you. What are maybe your two favorite moments, memories you're able to write down from the first two books?
I mean, it is from that second book. It was that hubris of the final game of Coach K game at Cameron, where there was no thought to the fact that Carolina could win that game. Zero. It was a party. That to me really summarized everything that we've always said about Duke, and just the level of arrogance and the hubris that went into that game, and then they got it, smacked right in the face. So that one, of course, winning in the Final Four was an all-timer, but that whole event of that last game in Cameron was just kind of encapsulated it. And then Grayson Allen, I never thought that someone would raise to the level for me that Christian Laettner was, but when Grayson Allen came along and his shenanigans, I was like, I can't believe this kid is right there, like 1A and 1B for me.
I think it's a great way to put it, but it's because, for some Carolina fans, and you can maybe attest to this, he was at least on the same level of Laettner, if not Laettner, JJ Redick. Like my introduction into the rivalry is post JJ Redick. Like, I mean, it was the next year. It was when Lawson and Ellington and those guys showed up. That was my first year following the program from start to finish. I was talking about, though, Hansborough's win on Redick senior night. That's my favorite throwback. Like, whenever I go seek an old rivalry game between these two, that's the one that I go to. So take me back to Christian Laettner and just try to put into words, because I've watched the documentary.
Yep.
It's one of, and mainly because it's anti-Duke material. It's one of the better ones that I think they've done, because I think they did a really good job with Carolina, but of course the whole incident at LSU, among other places where he was a college basketball villain in the truest sense that we haven't really seen since. Just try to put into words for you as a Carolina fan the disdain you had for a guy that, at the end of the day, as much as you hated, you had to tip your cap because he was a good basketball player.
Oh yeah, I mean he was, and I mean I always have to give a shout out to Rory Karp, who's the producer of that film. I mean he's made that film. He made several other ones that were really, really great, and they were great to work with during the process of shooting that. And I mean they just did an amazing job. I like to joke like it was a really good film despite my bald presence in it. But
right
yeah,
there with you, man.
Follically
Right
Challen brothers, right there, man. Yeah, I know, we feel you. So I think, so for somebody of your generation, or somebody of a generation that came after Laettner, to try to put it in context, it's tough because it's obviously a very different time in college basketball. You had stars that stayed as opposed to kind of stopping in for a year or two. But that time, Coach K, in terms of the Duke and Carolina rivalry, Coach K was just coming up, and he had been to the Final Four that a couple years before that, but he was not the Coach K, right? But Laettner came in and was really good from the start. Carolina was down that first year that he was there. They started winning. And the thing is, they won back-to-back national championships, right, when Laettner was there. And they were the darlings of college basketball. And that wasn't that long after Michael Jordan had helped Dean Smith win his first one. So it was almost like they were taking Carolina's place. But it's hard to, I mean, if you take JJ Redick and you know a little bit about him, the antics on the court, the just in leaning into wearing the black hat, and Grayson Allen, it's like those guys, but imagine like, and don't get me wrong, both of those guys were really, really good players, but they were never, JJ Redick, Grayson Allen were not like clearly the best player in the country on a national championship team, So kind of take both of those guys and the hatred that you felt for them And now imagine they're sticking around for 4 years and they're winning championships, and they're getting away with all of the things that they're getting away with. So I mean, it was unlike anything else, because he was really good, as much as it pains me to say that. They were really good, as much as it pains me to say that. But he was an absolute jerk. And while he got a little bit of press for that, mostly it was about how awesome he was, and he was just the man. He was the face of college basketball. So, I mean, I was even younger generations, like I can't even, like even Cooper Flagg being there last year, the amount of hype that he was getting. And he wasn't a guy that was like, stomping on people, but imagine if he'd stayed for 4 years, won multiple championships and stuff. I mean, you can't get away from it.
Do you think, because like for old Carolina fans, like I've been able to develop a great relationship with Michael Norwood, who played for Carolina basketball in the 80s. He's told me, that growing up it was Carolina State. Like that was the rivalry. And the 80s is, when Coach K arrives, or and really builds Duke up into a national program. And then of course we have the invention of ESPN and national TV really accelerating the rivalry to a national level. Do you look at Leitner, though, as almost like a necessary evil to get the rivalry to where it got to, where, by the time you get to Bloody Montrose, it was starting to be talked about in the way that we talk about it now, where it's the greatest rivalry in sports. Like, do you think the rivalry needed him? Because like you have like Art Heyman in the 60s, but, that was in the 60s. There wasn't national TV. You didn't have recruiting services. You didn't have people writing and blogging and podcasting about college sports the way that we do now. So for as much as, you loathe him, it feels like to get this rivalry to where it got to, it needed the villain that Leitner was and is.
Josh, that's a great question, man. I will tell you that I think it is. And you mentioned something else that I think a lot of people don't think about, but you mentioned it, is ESPN, right? I mean, they came into being in, was it 1979? So about 10 years before this, and really kind of, were kind of putzing along there to the mid 80s when they started to really, take off. And it was all of those things coming together, and now college basketball was on and had a place to be on more than it really ever had, right? And so that being there, and Leitner kind of coming up, and you had, I think it was all of those things coming together. Certainly, like you said, there were moments before that where Duke and Carolina were a thing. I mean, Danny Ferry, there was a guy, Art Heyman. It goes back even to the 20s, as we wrote in our first book. But I do think the fact that now within a very short time frame, not only were both teams good, they were close. They had iconic coaches in place, which is the consistency in college basketball. And now they start winning championships. And so you're right. I think it was those things coming together. It was Leitner being the face of that and being the personality that he was that really kind of cemented things. And then you started seeing, you just started seeing it continue from there. And I think we documented this in our second book, but in the Coach K era, the closeness with these teams play, people tuned in, and it was always, I mean, J.D. Billis always says it always delivers, but have that, when Carolina went into the game on the Final Four, they were exactly tied 50-50, between the Coach K era, and the number of points was like 20 points amongst all those games and difference. So it's Leitner being hateable, being a guy that is visible and out there, but it's also the competitiveness of those games. And you tune in and you always know, even as a casual fan, you're going to see something really good.
Let's also not forget that the guy that led their program for 40 plus years was a villain, and the sport, I think, misses him in ways that we don't like. I mean, I hate Bill Self, I hate Tom Izzo, I hate John Calipari. I don't think though that resonates with the way that some other schools in the Big 10, Big 12, SEC could really profess their hatred for. Everyone hated Coach K, and it felt like for him, his villain moment goes back to the double standard comment, where he's addressing that there's a double standard that exists in the league. It's in a year where, like, if he had that year in modern college athletics, he doesn't stay through the next season. He does get fired. And that's why I'll always hate Tom Butters, because, if he would have done what his boosters wanted him to do, then none of this crap ever happens.
That's right.
Coach K is just a forgotten about man. He probably goes back to Army and coaches a bunch of cadets. But he's able to see that thing through. But I think that's the thing for Carolina fans. Like for me, for someone that lived through a bunch of it all, it was still that direct shot at Dean Smith and what he had built. That no matter what he did, and I know they became close friends, and they were really close off the court, but it was always that comment that from that moment on, even as he built his program into a national power, you knew how he felt about us. You know how he felt about our guy, and it's why, for all those many years, he had many insults hurled his way, and I was right there with a lot of Carolina fans talking about him being a rat face looking SOB, among other things I cannot repeat on this podcast.
Yes, same. Yeah, I mean, you're right, and that longevity is what kept him there, right? Because players come and go through college basketball, but that coach is the through line, and he had plenty of instances. We've documented it where he did things that most people did not like. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know that you're going to recreate that with the way that college basketball is now. But those things, I still think, as long as those teams are good and they're competitive, both these teams are good and competitive. There are going to be characters that come through every time. The rivalry will change and it'll go through ebbs and flows. But I just don't see that really changing anytime soon, for sure.
We're talking with Andy Bagwell, a noted author about his hatred for Duke. He's a co-author of Duke Sucks and the sequel Duke Still Sucks. And if you've ever seen the I Hate Christian Laettner documentary, he's the bald guy you see in there talking about why he hates Christian Laettner. I wanted to ask you about the state of the rivalry, because in my position, I of course have a podcast. I also work in sports talk radio in Charlotte. This rivalry is the bloodline of the sport. I feel like, on a local level and even at a national level, the first matchup is usually the unofficial beginning of the college basketball season. But all I get told is that it's different. It no longer cares, blah, blah, blah. But the ratings suggest otherwise. The environment in the Smith Center tomorrow will suggest otherwise. You mentioned that the rivalry is going to have its ebbs and its flows. It's, we've got two different people that are stewarding the rivalry, in Hubert Davis and John Shire. How would you assess, I guess, the health of the rivalry as we get prepared for the first of two matchups this year?
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, not just because I write books about it, but I want the rivalry to be strong. People there are some people who say, well, I want Duke to never win another basketball game. It's strange to say, but it's much more fun when we have this rivalry. That's what makes being a sports fan so fun, is when you have somebody that you're really looking forward to playing. I think the state of the rivalry right now, it's different, right? It's a new chapter with Coach K being gone and Roy Williams being gone. But I'll tell you this, Josh, Duke is going to Duke, right? Duke is always going to Duke. And you just give them a little bit of time and something's going to happen and it's going to be right there. And they could probably say the same thing about Carolina, but I think that last year, the narrative last year, up until about this point in the season, this is the most likable Duke team that's ever been, and everybody loves Cooper Flagg. And then we had that moment in the Carolina game where Cooper Flagg's mom is in the stands, and everybody's like, oh my God, come on, give me a break. And so I say just hang tight. If you think this rivalry is a little bit, tampered down, something almost always happens that makes people come back and go, see, that's what we're talking about. So I do think it's funny you brought it up too, because I had a question come from a writer, used to be in the News Observer, named Andrew Carter, who actually moved on to the Chicago Tribune. Great guy, great writer. And he asked me, on social media, what if the NIL era, what does this rivalry really mean? It's like, you're cheering for the team that we're paying those guys to come play for us, and they're paying those guys to come for us. Does it really mean the same? And I think, to me, it's different, but it's really still there, right? You still have rivalries in professional sports, and yes, the guys, the roster turns over a little bit, but old habits die hard, and I still just think it is always something special because of how competitive the teams are, no matter the era.
Yeah, I mean, I still find myself when I'm in that building tomorrow night, and I've got to do the thing where I'm sitting up there with the media, and I've got to be non-biased. I don't know if I can do it. I was able to do it last year at the ACC tournament, but that was a weird setup. I had to stand during the whole game. That's a different story for a different time. I'm kind of worried about myself trying to control this. Once I see them and their jersey still says Duke,
Yep.
I can find a reason to hate them. I can find a reason to root against them. John Shire was, on a team that won a national title the year after we won a national title. He was on a team that beat us by 32. I mean, and I've met John. I've had conversations with John. I think he knows I don't like him. We shook hands. He looked in my eyes, and I think you can probably tell that I've said some bad things about him. So I'm with you, man. Like, I want the rivalry good. Like, yes, I say things I don't want them to win, blah, blah, blah. I want them to win. I want State to win because I want to beat State when they're good.
That's exactly right.
It makes it that much sweeter.
Yep.
And I do think the rivalry as we venture in this new era of NIL, transfer portal, revenue sharing, I think once stuff gets regulated, I think that'll help the rivalry too, where you're keeping guys mainly in their side here for more than just 1 year. Because Carolina traditionally is going to try to build and keep guys here for 2 to 3 years. When they can start keeping those guys, that's what made Filipowski, that second year, and we got to taunt him with the too small thing. Yep. He was only here 2 years, but he gave us that chance to have that moment. A few more for you, Andy.
Sure.
I'll let you go. I could talk to you. I swear for hours. Big talking point around Carolina is the building. And the future of the building. This is something that we've been documenting on the pod for the last, 12, 15, 18 months. And we know that we're getting closer and closer to there being some sort of a decision. They're breaking ground over on Carolina North. We know that the university is going to maximize that property in some form or fashion. What do you think is the right decision to do?
I'll tell you.
Is it to renovate this historic building that gave us Bloody Montrose, that's given us some iconic? It gave us the Marvin Williams moment. It's given this rivalry iconic moments. Or when money is the name of the game right now, should Carolina chase the revenue that's to be gained if they go and build at Carolina North?
I actually don't think there is a right answer. I think either one, is going to be tough, right? I fall on the side of trying to find a way to renovate the Dean Dome. It is an iconic building, and I think that you've got so much there. I think you lose something if you're not in that building. But I'm not definitely not one of these guys. If the decision was made, to build a new arena at Carolina North, I'm not one of these guys that is like, well, that's it. I'm not giving any more money to the program or whatever, because I think traditions can become, just because you have new traditions don't mean that they're bad, right? And so I can see. When I went to Carolina, the Dean Dome was 3 years old. So it was still a brand new building. And I definitely remember people going to the Dean Dome at those games and going, this is nothing like it was at Carmichael. Carmichael was so much better. Right. But it wasn't long after that we were like, well, this is it. This is the new home and we love it. And that's my experience. My experience was not Carmichael. And my experience was always Dean Dome. So if you do end up moving the building, yes, the transition is hard, but there were people complaining about how far off campus the Dean Dome was when I was there, right? And so you would have a transition period, but the minute you have students that start going to that new arena and they build their own memories there and they build all the things that could be around that, then it becomes their place, and that next generation of Carolina fans become attached to that and say, well, this is the way that it is and it always has been. And I do trust that either way, they're going to do it right. If you end up building a new arena, it's going to be amazing. Like I trust that the people that will do it will do an amazing job. But I still have a hard time. Like you can tell, I'm an emotional guy. I have an emotional connection to the Smith Center because I was there for Bloody Montrose, my senior night there. And so it has an emotional attachment for me that I would like to see them find a way to do it there. But if you think about it, Josh, like what that involves. So let's say they do it and let's say we're going to renovate it, and you can't play basketball while you're renovating there. So what do you do? So now you got to play games. You can't play them in Carmichael. You have to play them in Greensboro. You're not going to play them in Raleigh. You can play them in Charlotte. Well, there's going to be a whole generation potentially of students that don't have home basketball games, right? And so there's just no good answers because someone is going to get the short end of the stick during a renovation, during a new move, or anything. But I hope that they find a way to keep it there, because I think that will kind of go farther to cement Carolina's place in basketball. It was a really compelling argument. I don't know what it said. It's like, hey, Fog Island's been there for this many years. They've found a way to keep that there. All the other places. And I'm like, you know what? That's right. You don't want to fall to the mighty dollar if you don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you watched any of the Kansas BYU game a week ago, but Billis was on the call, and it was the 1000th game at Allen. And it was just the way he talked about that. I want to have that same moment for the Dean Dome. Like, I wanted to host this 1000th game and him talk about how much history and tradition is tied up in the building. My biggest fear is that this becomes a fight between Carolina, the administration, and the Carolina basketball family. And look, we know how ugly and messy it was when we had to go through the Matt Doherty stuff. I don't want to see that go through it. So hopefully they can find a decision that makes all parties involved. But it's going to be interesting. And I feel like, we're going to have a decision sooner rather than later. And hopefully they make one that makes the people and the powers that be as happy as they can be. So hopefully you don't find this weird. I do watch your post-game walks.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I'm a very emotional fan, and before I start writing, before I start talking, I want to have some insight, some opinions from other Carolina basketball fans that I know are knowledgeable and passionate like yourself. A lot of noise has been made about Hubert Davis and the job security. And after the West Coast trip, I ain't going to lie to you, there were a lot of tough conversations we were having on the podcast because it just didn't look right. It didn't feel right. It looked like something was off, and it felt like Carolina was about to nosedive and take us on another roller coaster. What do you, as a lifelong, fan, supporter, whatever, what do you make of that? Because, he's family, but there's an expectation of winning and excellence that he's met in some regards and hasn't met in some others.
It's so tough. And I said this, and I appreciate you mentioning that. Yeah, I've kind of gotten into this habit of little walk and talk after the games on social. And I talked about it after the California games. And it's hard for me because I mentioned that I lived on the same hall with Hubert Davis at Carolina my first 2 years there. So I have a personal connection. But I wouldn't say we're friends at all, but I have a personal interest in, I want to see him succeed.
Mm-hmm.
I do think, though, and it's hard. I try my best not to be a prisoner of the moment and say, well, God, we played terrible. He should be fired, right? Because you've got to be able to look at the whole. But I still think that at the end of this year, however it ends, I think you have to at least try to have a measured, evaluation and a conversation about where he is and as a coach and relative to where everyone feels that Carolina basketball should be. I mean, if you take a step back and you say Carolina basketball, one of the top programs of all time, hired a coach that had no coaching experience at any level, had a great NBA career, had a great career, was a family. In an abstract, that sounds a little odd. Now, I think that Hubert has actually gotten better as a coach since he first started. I see measurable things, but I think you have to have a conversation to say, is that what Carolina basketball is? Are we okay with seeing a coach improve over time, and can he get to the point where he is a top level coach, but without damaging the program? So I think Josh, there are some things that have been fairly consistent. We've got 5 years now that I think would cause you to raise an eyebrow on certain things. And no matter the outcomes of certain games, I still think there's some things we have to have a measured conversation about after the season is over. But I just think you also have to keep in mind that you can always do worse right? And there's a lot of things that are really great about Hubert, all the things that we don't really think about in terms of him being part of the family, him being a stand-up guy. The football team has gone in a slightly different direction in terms of off the field reputations, right? So, and there's no guarantees, right? You can identify, you can see this throughout college basketball. You see a guy that's like super duper successful at a lower level, and you think, well, that's a home run hire. And they come to a big program and they can't do it for whatever reason. So you have to think about that. You're like, okay, are we willing to take a chance to maybe go farther down, and can we recover from that? Or are we okay seeing if Hubert can be a guy that can improve over the years and kind of keep Carolina at that level? It's tough, but I think we're have enough material that the conversation at least needs to be had after the season's over.
Yeah. Look, I was a Wes Miller guy when the job came open. Mm-hmm. That was the guy I was pounding the table for. I don't know if you checked. He's going to be fired by the time Cincinnati season comes to an end, if not during the season. And we want this job to be family oriented. It's the way that Dean Smith wants to see this program continue. For many generations to come. There's no one in the family right now ready that we can point to and say we can move on. And there's Roy Williams 2.0 waiting to come back and return us to glory. All right, last thing, and I'll get you out of here. So much talk is about beating Duke and being able to create that memory that lasts a lifetime for the 22,000 people that'll be in the stands tomorrow night, the people that'll be in the bars on Franklin hoping to rush the street. So I'll just ask you straight up, Andy, how does Carolina beat Duke?
Well, I think it's funny. I think the script is flipped. I think if years ago you'd say, well, if Duke is hitting their threes, they're probably going to win. And I think it just comes down to Carolina being able to hit threes tomorrow. I think, you've seen some better consistency with that. And we've been so reliant on it, all year. I think it comes down to that. I don't think you can shoot 28% from three in this game tomorrow and win the game, because I see the matchup in the post, which is Carolina's strength. I think that's going to almost be a wash. Maybe Wilson can find a way to be a little bit better than Cam Boozer. But it's the other guys that are going to make the difference. So I think if Carolina can find a way to slow down the guys like Isaiah Evans and Caleb Foster and get some contribution from the front, from the backcourt, from a Derek Dixon hitting a couple threes, a Jonathan Powell hitting a couple threes, someone having a good game on that end. I think that's the path. I think you've got to see Carolina's guards and wings outplay Duke's guards and wings, and I think that's how you find a way to the W.
I think you're right. I think Boozer and Wilson are going to pretty much cancel each other out. Can Derek Dixon give us 2 or 3 threes? Can Powell give us 2 or 3 threes? Can Luka Bogovac make some perimeter shots? If Carolina gets that and you get the production from your 2 bigs, I think we feel really good about our chances to end a 3-game losing streak, to then get back on the winning side and feel a lot more positive about what we can do this season in the regular season and in the postseason to come, which is ultimately the most important thing. He is Andy Bagwell, noted author of Duke Sucks and Duke Still Sucks. Just really quickly before I let you go, Andy, where can my audience, our listeners, our viewers, where can they purchase either one of those 2 great books?
Anywhere books are sold. So you can find them on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and local bookstores around Chapel Hill and other places. If you go into your favorite bookstore and they don't have it, ask them to order it and they can. So it's anywhere you can find a book. And Josh, just want to say thank you so much for having me on, man. A great conversation, and I'll be in the building too tomorrow. So hopefully we'll have something to celebrate.
Hopefully, man. I want to appreciate you. I was pretty geeked up about this. I was pretty proud of myself for being able to book you, because I know how much you love Carolina. I know how much you hate Duke. Those are 2 things I can relate to, because I love this program and I hate that program. So hopefully we're having a lot of fun tomorrow night about 8:30, 8:45.
Awesome. Yeah. Same here.
All right. Thank you, Andy. I'll talk to you later, man.
All right. Thanks, Josh.
All right. So there you go, guys. That is Andy Bagwell. Noted author, talking about how much he hates Duke. Make sure you get to those bookstores and buy either one of those 2 copies. In the meantime, we want to direct you guys to the website, HeelToughBlog.com, for all our great Carolina basketball, Tar Heel football coverage. You know how to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast to keep up with us on the audio and the video sides as well. But with that, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the show. I want to thank you guys for both watching and listening. And as always, Go Tar Heels and go to hell, Duke.